Addy Soldiers. Not sure why it looks so dark on camera. Like, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. I live in a cave. Also, I decided to start filming this during the hottest part of the day, so there might be a lot of angle changes as my camera overheats again and again. Place your bets now. I'm gonna say 4 times. I'm almost done my juice, but like, look at this friggin' adorable books, plants, and coffee tumbler that I got from Shop Charlie's Place, and I'll leave my link and discount code below. Welcome, friends, to my incredibly gay June wrap-up. To absolutely no one's surprise, I read a whole lot of gay books this June, and honestly, like, I'm pretty proud of myself. I managed to read 11 books. Who is she? So because I have a lot of thoughts and go right into the lip gloss. Nope, okay. Because I read a lot of books and had a lot of feelings, this video is going to be a bit of a long one. So without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in as we go over the 11 books that I managed to read this Pride Month. Oh, I'm out of juice. I need to get an iced coffee. Editing. Yes, I feel the caffeine. Now the real question is where to begin, because I had some major hits and misses this month. I read some really spicy stuff. I read some adorably wholesome things. Why don't we just start off with Gay Panic, the book, Imogen, obviously, by Becky Albertalli. This is Becky Albertalli's new adult debut, where we follow Imogen, who is the token straight of her friend group, and she's trying to be the best ally that she can be. However, when she goes and visits one of her roommates in college and starts getting a crush on one of her friends, she has a small identity crisis and realizes that she might not be as straight as she thought she was. I stayed up till 1 a.m. reading this, and the only reason I put it down was because I had to go to work the next day. Now, Becky, how dare you find the technology from the movie Inception, get inside my brain, and put all of my feelings onto a page where other people can also relate and somehow connect in our heteronormative society. I deeply identified with Imogen and her stressing over the aesthetics of queerness and not feeling queer enough if she doesn't hit these particular points, especially when other people in her life who are bisexual are telling her that she can't be this thing because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, that's not literally at all how queerness works. And it also lovingly explores friendship and how moving to college can test that relationship. And sometimes you have to let go of people in your past, or you have to move on with new people, or the lengths that people will go to keep those old connections. Trying to fit into a new ecosystem and meet new people, but also not knowing who you are, and the ending was a little fast, but overall, this book is a love letter to bisexual culture and finding yourself in college and cuff jeans and Phoebe Bridgers albums and Gay Panic and biphobia and how to be a good ally and all. The next two are some spicy sapphic reads that I made my way through this month, all thanks to Harlequin. Karina Adores and Harlequin sponsored a video of mine a couple weeks ago, which is like so wild. Harlequin knows who I am. But I'm totally fine and calm and cool about this whole situation. Just how like I am totally fine and calm and cool about the fact that Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding by Transia C. Higgins is one of the best rom-coms that I have ever read. Something about me that I've discovered is that I don't like watching reality TV, but I love a book that centers a reality TV show. Devon and Chris are contestants on Instant I Do, which is a show where two people meet and then have to fool the other's family into thinking that they are having a wedding, and they have 6 weeks to plan the whole thing, and if they can convincingly pull it off, then they like both win a bunch of money. But Devon and Chris may be actually falling for each other, and shenanigans occur. Like, I went into this expecting a little spicy fluff book, and instead it is like the sweetest thing. Like, Chris is helping Dee come out, and then like Dee's family is supporting her and her coming out, even though she has like really religious background, and like, am I about to cry? Now this book is hot. Oh, baby, the sex appeal is turned to high heat. I was also cackling at some of these lines, like in my house, on my couch, by my lonesome. It also goes into the trials and tribulations of dating an influencer, which I guess I should make my partner read this. This book was so fun and sweet and fast, yet also held some surprisingly deep conversations about queerness and coming out and religion and what you'll do for fame, and then like finding yourself with a partner. Like, I love this book. This book really takes the cake. Wait, no, where are you going? The other sapphic book that Harlequin sent me was An Island Princess Starts a Scandal by Adriana Herrera. Jesse of Exclusive Palm Beach Reading on TikTok was raving about this book, and then I read one of Adriana Herrera's short stories in that monster anthology, and I was like, You have my attention. And yet again, this book exceeded all expectations, where our main character Manuela is a Venezuelan painter who comes to Paris as one final summer of freedom before she attaches herself to a loveless marriage in the hopes of saving her family's reputation. However, once she's there, she catches the eye of Cora, Duchess of Sunbridge, and the two of them strike a deal that Manuela will sell Cora a piece of her family's land so that Cora can get ahead in her business, and in exchange Cora will show Manuela all of the sapphic delights of Paris. This was so fun and funny and easy to read. I ripped through this in like a day. It has such good tension and all the witty, salacious banter you could ever want. Not to mention a smoking hot love interest. And to quote yet another very famous TikTok, if suits are for men, why women sexier when they wear them? We get a really wonderful depiction of the queer community and queer women and female friendships, and not me crying at midnight over some of the most romantic words that I have ever read. But what I was not expecting, and actually loved the most about this book, is that it goes into the treatment of South American people in Paris during the 1800s. It talks about the various refugees from South America that found a life in Paris, and artists' unions, and workers' rights. And there's an incredible author's note at the end that lists all of her sources and goes further into the history of the queer art movement and what was going on with a lot of South American people in Paris at the time. Speaking of spicy, let's talk about the first book that I DNF'd this month. Oh, I started this off with such high hopes, like I had just mentioned with Kristen Devon. Like, I love a reality TV show thing. One of my favorite queer books of all time is Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly, which is like a baking show, cooking show, reality TV. My partner and I just watched most of season 2 of Is It Cake, and that host is not okay. But this book let me down. I was so excited for Paris Dalencourt is About to Crumble by Alexis Hall, and it did crumble horribly. This had all the ingredients to be a super cute baking show rom-com where our main character Paris has an anxiety disorder and he's not sure if cooking show is where he belongs, but when he's there, he like gets all these affirmations, like meets new people, and they're like, oh hey, Tarek is like kind of cute, and he's another one of the competitors, and they have to compete, but they're also falling in love. Though I did force myself to read half of it, I did end up DNFing this because this book is so frustrating to read. Oh my god, Paris, shut the fuck up. It is told in Paris's perspective, and Paris has an anxiety disorder, which like, bitch, same. And apparently it is diagnosed and talked more about later in the book, but I didn't get to that point because I could not stand this man's inner monologue. Paris, my dude, how have you gotten this far in life with the level of anxiety that you are producing every day? And everybody in this book was like, jokes, 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 and like, I like a quippy, funny character, but when every single character is doing it on every single line, and we literally can't have one singular paragraph without at least 2 funny little side notes, I'm like, I couldn't take it. And I'm so mad because the part of it that I did read had really good depictions of religious differences in relationships and like communication styles, wealth privilege, and mental illness. Like, this had so much potential, and it was not cake. So maybe you'll like it, but just me, the whole time I was going, Paris, shut up and go to therapy. You know, while we're here, why don't we talk about the other book that I DNF'd this month? Let's talk about Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall. I'm trying to not be an Alexis Hall hater. I liked Lady for a Duke, but these other ones are just not hitting. It's been a couple of videos since I reminded all of you that I'm an English major, so I have studied like a lot of Shakespeare. A Shakespearean retelling that is like vaguely 1800s Regency romance, Midsummer Night's Dream, from the perspective of Puck. What? I should love this! Our main character, Malis, has had a curse put on her, and she doesn't know who sent it, so she teams up with this lady of ill repute who may also be a witch, and they're trying to, you know, break this curse, but also, like, falling in love, and then society stuff and magic. Now, when I first saw reviews about this book, a lot of people didn't like the narrator, because we do actually have a narrator telling you the story, but I really like books like that, and especially since it's, like, this fae creature who, his lore is super neat, because he's like a type of storytelling hobgoblin who can like see stories around him happening, and like once he starts narrating a story that's in front of him, he can't stop and he like has to keep telling the story. I love that about him, but I loathe these characters because they're so fucking annoying. There's so much weird filler dialogue of them being quirky and them being like, haha, so funny. But I'm like, what was literally the point of any of that? One character is literally so stupid and it's just played for laughs. I'm like, what are you even doing here? Get a job. And I get that it's supposed to be this like whimsical, fantastical kind of like comedy of errors book, but like I just could not get into it, and I'm really upset because this cover is beautiful and I was ready for some magical sapphics, and even their relationship was like really weird and like badly paced and then also like randomly crass at times, and this is not for me. So I'm gonna take the L for Marvel Follies and I'm gonna take this back to the store. Ugh, I need a palate cleanser. Let's talk about a super freaking cute book. An adorable YA that I've been championing across the internet this month was Going Bi-Coastal by Dahlia Adler. Wednesday Books sent me Bicon author Dahlia Adler's latest, which follows Natalia, who has to choose whether she's going to spend her summer with her father in New York or her mother in LA, and we get alternative timelines based on what choice that she makes. What happens with her relationship with her mom if she stays in New York? Does she finally talk to that cute girl at the coffee shop that she's been looking at? What about reconnecting with old friends or trying to make new ones? But if she goes to LA, how will she treat the relationship she has with her estranged mother? Will she fall in love with a cute boy at her new internship? How is that choice going to affect whether she goes back to New York or not? I really loved the alternative chapters and how there are some basic plot lines that happen no matter where she is, but they happen in different ways based on like how she gets the information and from who at what time in what timeline. Also amazing in-depth Jewish rep and how Natalia's family is Jewish and they're talking about doing Shabbat dinners, but they're doing takeout because she never learned how to cook. But in one timeline we do learn how to cook, and in another timeline we get like wrapped up in other new traditions. It's definitely a feel-good book. It's very light conflict and it's just full of wonderful queer friendships and so much delicious food. I think this might actually be my favorite Dahlia Adler book. All right, let's keep this show on the road. So we all know that I support gay rights, but I also support gay wrongs, and I can't think of a book that does more gay wrongs than this one. I finally got my hands on a copy of A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, and y'all, this book is fucked. And this follows Constanta, a young peasant girl turned by Dracula himself into a bride fit for an undying king, but it's told as a letter she's writing him after she kills him. Dracula brings more and more people into their household, and all of the consorts realize the lengths that he will go to keep power, and it is all about dark secrets and blood and death. This book is more fucked up than I thought it was going to be. And maybe that's my own fault, because I heard about this all over the internet and was like, ooh, fun fantasy vampire romp. And instead I got centuries of relationship abuse and the deteriorating mental state of people who are not meant to live forever. Something that is horrid and intense and yet also goes into what connects us as family and a sweeping romance between Constanta and Magdalena. This did have a surprisingly sweet ending, despite the fact that we kill a lot of people. This is a psychological horror of a vampire novel, and I love that because it's like, what would it really be like to have lived for thousands of years, and like, what is your grip on reality and how do you deal with time and relationships? So I thought this was a wonderfully bleak, realistic look into the psyche of a vampire bride. Also, don't try and tell me that if you were a being that lived forever, you wouldn't try kissing the opposite gender at least once. Like, you're gonna be straight for all eternity. Okay. Also, for the record, I'd like to state that I think Dracula is gaslight, Alexei is gatekeep, and Constanta is girl boss. Okay, we're gonna now talk about a book that I don't physically have, because if I don't do it now, I'm gonna forget, and then editing Rachel will be mad at me. If I was going to be reading queer books all month long, that also meant I had to read queer spicy books, so I picked up Queen Takes Rose by Katie Robert. Now, this is part of her Wicked Villains series, and I didn't read any of the other ones. I probably could have benefited from doing so, but I didn't, so oh well. So this is the vaguest retelling of Sleeping Beauty. Our main character, Aurora, is a professional sub in the BDSM and kink community, and our other main character, Malone, is one of the most feared leaders of the city, and they spent a night together many moons ago, but then Malone dropped Aurora, and she's been upsetty spaghetti about it for many years now. But now they have a contract to work together for 2 weeks, and, hurt feelings surface and sexy times may occur. The first half was a little hit or miss for me, but then the second half hit, and I started digging into their trauma, and I was like, I'm in. I know Malone is supposed to be this, like, highfalutin, scary girl boss mafia member, and I'm just over here like, ooh, so scary. And Aurora is like fine, I guess. I read this at the beginning of the month and I literally cannot tell you a single thing that I remember about her character. The sexy times were in fact very sexy. Mommy, sorry. And I really appreciate the way that this book did kink, because it really goes into showing how healing kink can be, how it can be a way for you to confront and process hard emotions. I'm not sure how to feel about the third act breakup because it literally lasted like 10 pages, even though it was like a pretty big deal. But then they talked it out like fairly reasonably, and I'm like, oh, dang it, they communicated. Like, I don't know how to feel about it. So I did enjoy this little smutty one-off story, but I do have questions about this world that literally do not matter in any universe except for my own. As a fan of Katie Roberts' Dark Olympus series, Olympus is mentioned, and Hades is mentioned, but then we also have a Hades in this book that is not the same as the Hades in the other books. So I'm wondering, like, is Hades like a title? Like a manager? Like you can have a manager who works at Subway, and you can have a manager that works at Indigo, but like they're still managers. Is that how that works? This probably would make sense if I read the other books. Regardless, moving on. And now, a TikTok book that lives up to the hype. Books from TikTok authors are a very polarizing topic these days. Literally watch one of the videos I did a couple weeks ago. But I'm so happy to say that this next work was a beautiful, richly detailed, sweeping, epic Latinx fantasy novel, and that was The Name Bearer by Natalia Hernandez. I was there at the very beginning when she talked about wanting to write a book about this crazy dream she had about these giant flowers called the Flowers of Prophecy that were there to name the heirs to royal lines. Our main character, the Name Bearer, has been raised in the palace to speak with the Flowers of Prophecy when the queen bears a new child to give them the name that will help to secure their reign. But then when the time comes, the flowers say that the new baby that is born is the false heir. So even though she literally had one job, she can't fulfill her duty, and now she has to go on the run, and a sorcerer at court helps her hide in a temple of all warrior women to train to eventually go on an adventure to find the unnamed prince when she is of age. Now this is self-published, and I can tell that this is her debut novel. Like, it rambles a little bit in the middle, and the ending was a bit rushed, but like overall, what a sick ass concept, and what gorgeous depictions of female friendships and this beautiful Latinx South American fantasy world. We have prophecy flowers and children who can tell the future and wizards that do magic with rocks. The Danrayan Temple of Warrior Women was so fucking sick. I love their whole religious order, and it really goes into like the bonds of family and found family that Vanessa eventually experiences, like so wonderful and heartwarming. We have a bisexual demi-romantic MC, and I loved watching just like, again, gay panic. Also watching Ulrich and Roll like eventually break down their own barriers and become friends is really funny. And by the end of it, I'm like, are y'all three, is something happening? Is something gonna happen? Because I have a feeling something's gonna happen. This is a start of what I think is going to be a rich and detailed fantasy world, so if you're looking for something new, I would highly recommend picking this up. Oh my god. Okay, we're almost at the end. We got 2 more. I have enough coffee for 2 more. Yeah, okay, let's do it. Second lastly is a book I just finished the day before filming this, and I'm so glad that I did. Simon & Schuster sent me a copy of Spellbound by F.T. Lukens. I will shout about this book until all of you go and buy it. This book is so freaking adorable. This follows sorcerer apprentices Rook and Sun as they both have to overcome their differences and work together when both of their sorcerer mentors mysteriously go missing, when it's revealed that Rook's apprenticeship with his sorcerer goes against everything that the Magical Consortium stands for. This is a grumpy sunshine dynamic duo that is on the cusp of being too ridiculous, but it's not, so it works. Whereas I complained earlier about the quippiness of Alexis Hall's books, this book also has wit and quips and sarcastic banter. This works because it is written in a way where even the characters realize that the world they're in is just a little bit silly. Like, yes, under exploding coffee pot gags and cursed doormats, we do have a system of oppression towards people with no magic and people using horrible sources of force to uphold a very unrealistic and unfair system. We have them taking down the evil government by waving an iPad at people and becoming a cat and actively talking about how they're going to monologue now. And a light urban fantasy setting definitely helps set the vibe for it being a little bit more real world and regular, to like have magical coffee that the ice cubes are always ice in, which actually I could use that a lot right now. Or Rook being a customer service representative for a helpline that people call when they think that they've been jinxed with something. And Sun is both non-binary and autistic. They have sensory issues, particularly with sound and with touch, and seeing the two of them become friends and then maybe a little something more is like so incredibly sweet as we build trust and like respect boundaries. The ending was awesome. I love a good fuck you and fuck your rules scene, although I do wish it had been a little bit longer. FT Lukens is the GOAT when it comes to these fun, queer, standalone fantasy novels, and like this is no exception. Plus the cover is shiny. It's been so long. I'm so hot. My coffee is almost done. And friends, we are finally on the final title to talk about this month. I'm going to end with one of the best debuts that I have ever read, and that is The Final Strife by Sarah Al-Arifi. If you have but an inkling of an iota of an idea of picking this book up, girl, you gotta. This book fucking slaps ass. Yet again, I have to stop saying that. An African-Arabian fantasy novel that centers around the Akchabar, which are a series of trials that happen every 10 years to determine the next round of government officials. However, not everybody can become a warden, because in this society, your status is dictated by your blood color. Those of red blood being in high power, those of blue blood being in low power, and those of clear blood being ghostings, subservient and unseen by the general public. And our main character, Sila, was a red-blooded baby who was switched at birth and has become an assassin sent to take down the red-blooded kingdom from the inside out. Yet we also have soft-hearted Anur, who is the baby that Silo was switched at birth at, who is now a princess in the royal palace and is entering the championships in hopes of winning her mother's approval to become the Warden of Strength. Though the trials are deadly, the most dangerous thing comes from outside the trials, as rebellion is brewing and more of the world is opening up than we ever thought. This has intense magic and intricate politics, yet is so easily consumable. I took this on vacation when I went to Montreal last week, and within the time it took me to take a plane and 2 trains, I had finished it. This goes into race and privilege and loyalty and colonization and tradition and addiction, all with nonstop action and some fantastic character development, particularly with Anur. Sweetie, you're doing so great. The only thing I'm side-eyeing a little is like, I'm sorry, this world has 3 genders and no one bats an eye at same-sex couples, yet if your blood is a different color, you get your hands cut off. Like, I just feel like the people writing these laws, they had some wacky ideas about how to discriminate against people. Although I am going to wait to buy and read the sequel because I want this pretty UK softcover. I don't want the hardcover that's like $50 Canadian and also has a picture of a person on it. Like, no, I want this version. Is that petty? Yes. But am I a fiend for the aesthetic? Also yes. And I think that is that on that. There were the 11 books I managed to read this Pride Month. All of them were queer and all of them gave me emotions. As always, please leave down below what you read this June and if there's anything from your June TBR that's making its way into July. I have so many queer books on my TBR that I didn't get to in June, but you know, hey, that's the magic of being a reader, is that you can read whatever book you want any time of the year. June was a very busy month for me. I was in Montreal and Toronto and Kamloops and Kelowna and back in Vancouver, all within the span of like 2 weeks. So I did a lot of reading on planes, on trains, and I bought at least 1 book in every city that I visited. Hey, it's souvenirs, right? It was either gonna get a tattoo or get a book, and I didn't have time to get a tattoo, so what do you want? Sue me. Speaking of which, I swear a tattoo tour is coming. But maybe not till later July. You know where to click like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!